have picked a terrific venue, of course, because the four iconic species of Chinook salmon in California, the winter run, the spring run, the fall run, and the late fall run, are named because that's when they travel through the Golden Gate on their way to cold freshwater habitat in the Central Valley watershed. And yet we know that in recent years, two of those runs, winter and spring run, have landed on both the state and federal endangered species lists. And of course, the staple of commercial and recreational fishing, the fall run, is in terrible shape. And yet one of the frequent mantras that I always hear from those who want to take more and more water out of the system and leave less and less for fish is that we need balance. They call for balance while they have their thumb on the scales and are pressing harder and harder for their interests. Well, we're here today on behalf of California's beleaguered salmon fisheries and the families and the communities and the jobs that they support and represent to call for some real balance when it comes to managing the water resources of California to sustain our salmon runs. Things are seriously out of balance, in my view, when public trust resources like salmon, which you might think of as the most senior water rights holders in California, are teetering on the verge of extinction. When we have an important industry like commercial salmon fishing completely shut down for 2 consecutive years, and yet the public and the political debate on this issue continues to be driven by those who think that every drop of water that escapes the Delta pumps is somehow wasted. We've got to change that. And restoring balance to the California water debate requires us to impress upon policymakers and on the general public that salmon matter. Salmon matter because of the jobs and the families and communities that salmon fishing support. They also matter because salmon are an incredible reference species for our environment. They tell us a lot about the health of freshwater, estuarine, and marine ecosystems. In fact, they're critical links in all of those ecosystems. Given the historic and cultural and economic value of salmon, we might go one step further and just as easily say, as salmon go, so go humans.
And we have got to develop the science so we can give the judges some alternatives to just shutting down, opening up the pumps. That's not working. We have also asked this administration, and they have tentatively agreed, and we're working on the idea that this great delta system and its outflow to the oceans, and its impact on the fisheries and the oceans on the west coast of the United States, and its impact on the Central Valley and the rest of the system, that this system has to be looked at as a waterway of national significance. It has to be looked at with the kind of resources that are being put into the Chesapeake, into the Everglades, into the Great Lakes, into Puget Sound, and the Secretary of the Interior has listed this among those projects. So for the first time, we can talk about really national resources coming here to solve these problems. These problems must be solved in conjunction with the state, with the legislature, with the agencies in this state. We need to develop a policy that is flexible so that it can meet the demands of our economy and of our environment at the same time, and that's possible if people don't get too piggy. This fisheries is incredibly important to our environment, it's incredibly important to our economy, it's incredibly important to families and independent businesses all along the coast of California.
We all need to drive home the need to make all decisions based upon science. There's too many families in this state that are depending upon us to do that kind of good work, and the economy, both our local economy, our state economy, and our national economy depend greatly on that.
Record high water diversions in recent years tracks directly with record low recent salmon returns.
My guys have been fishing salmon for 150 years out of Fisherman's Wharf until the last 2 years. We're not fishing because fish aren't making it in the river because they're sucking too much water out of the delta to grow almonds and tomatoes down in the valley on bad dirt. We need to have an equitable division of the water so that we can get the salmon fleet back to work. Salmon's 50 to 70% of our income. I bought a house and raised 2 kids in San Francisco salmon fishing, and I'm on my third boat now. I got boat payments. I've made an investment of almost 30 years of my life in this fishery.
We pay taxes to subsidize water to grow cotton in Southern California, which isn't competitive on the world market, and then pay taxes again to sell the cotton on the world market, providing subsidies to the cotton growers. We're taking water from our river to grow this cotton and paying two ways to do it. One, we subsidize the water with taxes, and we've subsidized the cotton with taxes. We'd like our representatives in Congress to change this. We as taxpayers don't want to pay those subsidies. One other thing I would add is that we're losing a lot of wild salmon that are spawned naturally in our rivers because those smolts can't get to the sea. They get sucked up to go down with the water that we send to Southern California to the farmers. That reduces the number of wild salmon that we have. We'd like to have more wild salmon. The hatchery salmon, we have some control where we release those salmon and under what conditions, but the wild salmon are the ones that we're losing down the Delta.
Being a salmon representative, salmon is the most important thing, the most dear to my heart when it comes to fishing, and we've always considered it a sustainable fishery, but circumstances beyond our control, i.e. water usage, is getting to be a priority issue here now, and unless we start employing some wiser practices, it's going to cost us more than just salmon. When I started fishing 38 years ago, salmon was the first thing I learned, and it's always been my favorite thing to be doing. I've never seen 2 days on the ocean that were alike, and it's always had something to pique my interest, either in the environment or just on the boat. So it was a lifestyle until recent times when management turned it into a business, but we still cling to the heritage.